Few stories are told through the generations carry the same chilling weight as the legend of the old demon burial. The burial of the dead by the dead. Picture this: a moonless night where shadows are heavy and silence wraps itself around the village like a suffocating shroud. Out of the darkness, ghostly figures, the deceased ancestors themselves, emerge dressed in white funeral robes, carrying the coffin of the newly dead toward its final rest. The air is thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and an electric tension that warns any onlooker: turn away or risk the wrath of spirits not meant for human eyes. To see such a procession, to even dare acknowledge it, is said to invite a terror beyond comprehension. For these are not gentle apparitions fulfilling a duty. Some are old demons harboring ancient grudges, trailing malevolent whispers. And if fate should place you in their path, one rule is paramount: keep walking, head down, heart racing, and pray they don't see you too. Today, I want to share a unique and mysterious event known as Old Demon Burial, the burial of the dead by the dead. Translated literally, Old Demon Burial means funeral for the dead. This ritual involves deceased ancestors, such as parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts, who, appearing as ghostly figures or old demons, carry the coffin of a recently deceased individual to their final resting place. These apparitions are dressed in white and often appear in the quiet of night, between midnight and 3 in the morning. That's why there was always a warning in the past: stay away from funerals at these hours. But as the saying goes, where good spirits are, evil ones are also present. Some of these old demons are not forgiving and are known for their mischief. They don't always bring good intentions and sometimes carry an ominous presence. If you ever encounter an old demon burial, the best advice is to quietly continue walking and act as if you see nothing. These funerals are meant for the dead, not for the living. In fact, anyone who witnesses one by accident is said to be in danger. These ceremonies are strictly secret, and the living are not meant to observe them. Those who do are considered to possess forbidden knowledge that could ultimately harm them. For those unfamiliar with this mystical ritual, it dates back to a time when life was different. The 1960s and 1970s were simpler, yet for many, they were better. People were rich in heart and home, owning a piece of land, a country house, and raising large families with sometimes as many as 10 children. My grandmother came from a family of 14. Unbelievable. The women were strong, giving birth without pain relief and raising many children. People lived long lives. The oldest in the family reached 107, and there are still relatives nearing the century mark. Children in those days were mature and responsible. We played house and doctor, or cooked stew using fresh ingredients from the garden, like okra, river fish, and homegrown herbs. Food was pure, fresh, and delicious. Salted fish with rice or roasted pigeon, either caught ourselves or hunted with a slingshot. By the age of 5, we were already helping with household chores. Respect was a given. We spoke with sir and ma'am. Everyone knew each other in the neighborhood. After school, we played a traditional game on the field, surrounded by neighbors who cheered us on. Sundays brought a serene silence over the streets. It was a day for rest and church, and music was never heard. Holy Saturday was truly silent. Many remember this time fondly. old demon burial remains a mystical ritual, reminding us of the power of our ancestors, the magic of the past, and the respect for both the living and the dead. Our family property used to be huge, spanning 4 lots with 2 houses on each. 4 generations lived together. Great-grandmother, Madada, grandmother, Ma Yet, mother, and Us children. In total, there were about 22 children on the property. We lived in a town reminiscent of an old village near a historic church. The sense of community was remarkable. When the local Muslim families celebrated their feast of sacrifice, anyone could come and get free meat. What a time that was. Later, we also lived in a vibrant neighborhood in the city, and for a while, in a prosperous region known for its resources. There, we had wonderful moments, surrounded by families of various cultures, whose beauty and traditions captivated me. Our yard was home to many animals: chickens, geese, ducks, and even a large dovecote with about 75 pigeons. Grandma knew each pigeon by sight, and we always knew when new ones appeared because our birds would bring them back from the neighborhood. Besides the pigeons, we had a deer named Keys, who only ate fruits and vegetables, and 2 monkeys: Boik, a reddish-blonde monkey, and Langa, a long-armed monkey we brought from the plantation. Our garden was a paradise filled with fruit, from grapefruit to soursop, from mangoes to guava. Everything grew there. Yet, despite all that abundance, it was thrilling to borrow fruit from neighbors, something Grandma actually encouraged, as long as we dared. The trees laden with juicy fruits, like jamun, which we even made wine from, were particularly tempting. When the rainy season came, the rain would pour down in torrents. That never stopped us. Whether day or night, we ran outside and swam in the puddles on the property. We never got sick, as there was a remedy for every ailment, an old family cure. During the dry season, the creeks and swamps dried up, and we would venture into the dried-up riverbeds, exploring and pretending to be adventurers. We built forts out of bamboo and used the leaves of banana trees as shields, defending our imaginary kingdoms from invisible invaders. The sun would beat down on us, but we didn't mind. We were children of nature, thriving on its warmth and wildness. But with this deep connection to the land and its stories came an awareness of the unseen. Our elders often spoke in hushed tones about encounters with spirits and the consequences of disrespecting the old ways. The stories of the old demon burial were passed down, not just as folklore, but as warnings, echoes of a time when the barrier between the living and the dead was thinner. I remember my grandmother's voice, low and serious, as she recounted how one of her uncles, who had accidentally witnessed an old demon burial, became ill shortly afterward. His health never recovered, and he spoke little of what he saw, except to say that the dead do not forgive trespassers. Our evenings were spent gathered around an old kerosene lamp, listening as elders shared tales that blended history with the supernatural. The stories were never just stories. They were teachings. They spoke of loyalty, caution, and the understanding that we were but a part of something much larger and more mysterious. One night, a neighbor's relative passed away unexpectedly. The family was stricken with grief, and whispers spread through the neighborhood that it had been an unnatural death. The tension was palpable, like a storm waiting to break. I couldn't sleep that night, as the air felt thick, almost suffocating, and and the wind outside howled like a warning. At midnight, a strange silence fell over the town. I sat up in bed, ears straining against the dark. Then I heard it, a faint, rhythmic sound that seemed to echo from the main road. I crept to my window and peered through the curtains, heart pounding in my chest. There, under the thin glow of the street lamp, I saw them. White figures, shrouded in ghostly cloth, moving slowly in procession. Each one carried a corner of a coffin, their heads bowed, eyes hidden in shadow. Cold sweat trickled down my back. This was the old demon burial. I remembered my grandmother's voice warning, "If you ever witness one, pretend you don't see." But I was transfixed, unable to tear my gaze away as the procession approached. Then, something strange happened. One of the figures stopped directly in front of my house, its movements sudden and deliberate. It turned, raising its head, and for a moment, our eyes met. Its face was hollow, dark as the deepest pit. And yet, I felt it staring into my very soul. An icy grip squeezed my chest, and I stumbled backward, landing on the floor. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked tight. The air in the room grew colder, frost crawling across the window pane. I scrambled to my feet, my hands shaking as I tried to convince myself that it was just a dream, an illusion brought on by fear. But then I heard it. Footsteps, slow and heavy, climbing the stairs inside my house. Panic flooded me. I glanced at my bedroom door, the handle twisting ever so slightly as if touched by an unseen force. The door creaked open, revealing a shadow darker than the night itself. The figure from the street stepped inside, carrying the cold with it. The voice that followed was low, guttural, and ancient. "You were never meant to see." My legs gave out, and I slumped to the floor, paralyzed with terror. The figure loomed over me, and I could see its bony hand reaching out. Skin stretched impossibly tight over skeletal fingers. It touched my forehead, and suddenly, memories that weren't mine flooded my mind. Old burials, unspeakable rituals, and the faces of the dead, eyes wide and accusing. Just when I thought I would lose myself in the madness, a distant sound echoed. A knock at the front door, sharp and urgent. The figure recoiled, hissing like a snake before vanishing into the cold air. I gasped for breath, crawling to the window to see who had come. An old woman stood on my porch, her face lined with deep wrinkles and eyes that glimmered with knowing. She met my gaze and nodded solemnly before speaking words I will never forget. "Your grandfather's debt is due. You must finish what he started, or the old demons will claim you." Before I could respond, she turned and disappeared into the mist, leaving me shivering, alone, and faced with the terrifying truth. The ritual wasn't just a legend. It was real, and now it was my fate. The night stretched on, filled with the weight of an unspoken curse, and I knew there would be no sleep, only the haunting whispers of what was yet to come. Comment below if you're brave enough to face what lurks in the dark. But be warned, once you know the truth, there's no turning back. Remember, this isn't just a story. The old demon burial ritual still lingers in the shadows of our world, waiting for the next soul to witness its cursed procession. If you've ever felt an unexplainable chill, or if you've seen something in the corner of your eye at night, don't ignore it. It might not just be your imagination. The spirits of the dead are watching, and they don't forgive trespassers. If you feel that eerie cold creeping up your spine right now, it's not by chance. The old demons are close, and they're waiting for someone to cross their path. Will you be the next one to see what should never be seen? Keep your eyes open and your head down, or else you may find yourself marked by the curse of the dead.